Today, we bring you a developing story out of Georgia, a state that has found itself at the center of some of the most closely watched legal proceedings in recent memory. The figure at the heart of this particular narrative is none other than Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, a name that has become increasingly familiar to Americans following her office's investigation into alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in Georgia. But this chapter of our story doesn't directly involve the former president or the intricate details of that sprawling election interference case. Instead, it focuses on a separate legal challenge, one that has now resulted in a Georgia judge finding that District Attorney Willis violated the state's Open Records Act. This ruling carries with it a significant financial penalty, with the judge ordering Willis to pay over $54,000 in attorney's fees. This development raises serious questions about transparency, the conduct of public officials, and the ongoing legal saga in Georgia. The attorney who brought this Open Records lawsuit is Ashley Merchant, a defense lawyer representing Michael Roman, one of the 18 co-defendants indicted alongside the former president in the election interference case. It was Merchant's persistent efforts to obtain specific public records from the district attorney's office that led to this legal showdown. According to court documents and statements made by Merchant, her attempts to acquire these records were met with resistance, delays, and what the judge ultimately described as openly hostile behavior from Willis's office. The records Merchant sought were multifaceted, touching upon various aspects of the district attorney's operations. These included reports provided to Willis's office by companies hired to monitor the media impact and public perception of her statements, particularly around the time the investigation into the 2020 election intensified. She also requested a copy of the non-disclosure or confidentiality agreement that employees of the district attorney's office are required to sign. Furthermore, Merchant sought a comprehensive list of attorneys hired by Willis since she took office. The crux of Merchant's argument was that these documents were public records accessible under Georgia's Open Records Act, which mandates that government agencies provide citizens with access to their records upon request, with certain limited exceptions. Merchant contended that the district attorney's office failed to comply with these legal obligations, prompting her to file a lawsuit in January 2024 as what she described as a last resort. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Rachel Krause presided over the case. After reviewing the evidence and hearing testimony, Judge Krause delivered a scathing ruling against District Attorney Willis and her office. The judge found that the failures to comply with the Open Records Act were not mere oversights or unintentional delays. Instead, Judge Krause concluded that these failures were intentional, not done in good faith, and were substantially groundless and vexatious. This strong language from the bench underscores the seriousness of the violation in the eyes of the court. The finding that the non-compliance was intentional and not in good faith suggests a deliberate effort to withhold the requested information. The terms substantially groundless and vexatious further imply that the district attorney's office lacked any legitimate justification for their actions and that their resistance was unnecessarily obstructive. As a direct consequence of these findings, Judge Krause ordered District Attorney Willis to not only search for and turn over all the records responsive to Merchant's requests, but also to pay Merchant's legal team a significant sum of $54,103.23 in attorney's fees. The judge stipulated that both the documents and the payment must be delivered within 30 days of the order, which was issued on a Friday in March 2025. The reaction to this ruling has been swift and significant. Merchant herself expressed satisfaction with the outcome, stating publicly that she was thrilled that Judge Krause was willing to hold Fani Willis accountable for violating the Open Records law. She emphasized the importance of open records, asserting that they are vital to our state and country so that the public can see where their tax money is going and what elected officials are doing in office. A spokesperson for the district attorney's office, however, indicated that they plan to appeal the judge's order. This signals that this particular legal battle is far from over and could potentially wind its way through the higher courts of Georgia. The details emerging from the court proceedings shed light on the specific ways in which the district attorney's office allegedly obstructed Merchant's requests. Judge Krause noted in her order that Willis's office was openly hostile to Merchant and that testimony revealed her requests were handled differently than other requests. One particularly telling example highlighted in the judge's ruling involved the Open Records officer for the district attorney's office, Dexter Bond. Bond testified that he refused to communicate by phone with Merchant, even though his regular practice was to call the requester if a request was unclear. Judge Krause specifically pointed to this differential treatment as indicative of a lack of good faith on the part of the district attorney's office. The implications of this open records violation extend beyond the financial penalty and the release of the requested documents. It casts a shadow on the transparency and accountability of a high-profile public official and her office, particularly at a time when they are under intense scrutiny due to their handling of the election interference case. The fact that the attorney who successfully sued for these records is also a defense lawyer in that very election case adds another layer of intrigue to the situation. It raises questions about potential motivations and the broader context of the legal battles surrounding the 2020 election aftermath in Georgia. Let's now turn our attention to the specific types of documents that Merchant was trying to obtain from the district attorney's office. According to court filings, one key category of records involved reports from companies that Willis's office hired to track the impact of Willis's statements to the media and whether such statements were viewed favorably by the public. These contracts with media tracking firms reportedly began just before Willis and her office sought to indict the former president and others in connection with the 2020 election. The timing of these contracts is noteworthy. It suggests that the district attorney's office was actively monitoring public perception of their actions and statements as they moved towards the significant step of seeking indictments in a highly sensitive and politically charged case. The public has a legitimate interest in understanding how public funds are being used and the extent to which a prosecutor's office might be concerned with public opinion as they conduct their investigations. Merchant also sought a copy of the non-disclosure or confidentiality agreement that employees of the district attorney's office are required to sign. These agreements typically outline what information employees are prohibited from sharing publicly, even after they leave their employment. Access to such a document could provide insights into the internal culture and transparency practices of the prosecutor's office. Understanding the scope and limitations of these agreements could be relevant to ensuring accountability and the free flow of information to the public. Furthermore, Merchant requested a comprehensive list of all attorneys hired by Willis since she assumed office. This information is crucial for understanding the staffing and resource allocation within the district attorney's office. It could shed light on the expertise and focus of the legal team involved in various cases, including the high-profile election interference investigation. Transparency regarding the hiring practices of a public prosecutor's office is essential for public trust and oversight. The fact that Willis's office allegedly resisted providing these seemingly basic administrative and operational documents raises questions about their commitment to transparency. Judge Krause's finding that the resistance was intentional and lacked good faith further amplifies these concerns. It's important to remember the context in which this open records dispute unfolded. Ashley Merchant's initial involvement in the broader legal saga stemmed from her representation of Michael Roman, a former campaign staffer who was indicted alongside the former president. As part of her defense of Roman, Merchant began investigating various aspects of the prosecution's conduct, including the relationship between District Attorney Willis and Nathan Wade, a special prosecutor she had hired to lead the election interference investigation. It was a bombshell filing by Merchant in January 2024 that publicly exposed the romantic relationship between Willis and Wade, alleging that this relationship created a conflict of interest that should disqualify Willis and her office from the election case. This revelation led to a series of dramatic court hearings where Willis's personal life and professional conduct were scrutinized. Ultimately, the Georgia Court of Appeals ruled that Willis and her office could not continue to prosecute the election interference case against the former president and others, citing an appearance of impropriety arising from the relationship. While Willis has asked the Georgia Supreme Court to review and reverse that disqualification ruling, the High Court has not yet indicated whether it will take up the case. This leaves the prosecution of the remaining defendants, including Roman, in a state of uncertainty. Against this backdrop, Merchant's pursuit of open records from Willis's office takes on added significance. It suggests a broader effort to scrutinize the operations and decision-making processes of the district attorney, particularly in relation to the politically charged election interference case. The judge's strong condemnation of the district attorney's office's handling of the open records requests could have broader implications. It might embolden other individuals or organizations to file similar requests, seeking further transparency from an office that has now been found to have acted in bad faith regarding the disclosure of public information. Moreover, this ruling could potentially influence public perception of District Attorney Willis and her handling of the election interference case. Critics might point to the open records violation as further evidence of a lack of transparency or even a disregard for the rule of law within her office. Supporters, on the other hand, might argue that this is a separate issue that should not detract from the merits of the election interference prosecution. It's also worth noting that this is not the only legal challenge that Willis is currently facing. Beyond the appeal of her disqualification from the election case, she has also been the subject of scrutiny regarding her office's budget and spending. The open records sought by Merchant, particularly those related to contracts with media monitoring firms and the hiring of attorneys, touch upon these very areas of public expenditure and resource allocation. The legal principle underlying the Open Records Act is fundamental to a functioning democracy. It ensures that the public has access to information about the workings of their government, allowing for informed participation and accountability. When public officials are found to have intentionally violated these laws, it undermines public trust and can have significant consequences for their credibility and effectiveness. We've been detailing the Georgia judge's ruling that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis violated the state's Open Records Act, ordering her to pay significant attorney's fees and turn over requested documents to Ashley Merchant, the lawyer for a co-defendant in the election interference case. Looking ahead, the immediate impact of this ruling requires Willis's office to comply with the judge's order within 30 days. This means they must locate and produce the records sought by Merchant and pay the $54,000 in legal fees. However, the district attorney's stated intention to appeal this ruling means that this timeline could be extended, and the final outcome of the open records dispute could ultimately be decided by a higher court. An appeal would likely involve legal arguments about whether the judge correctly interpreted the Open Records Act and whether her findings of intentional misconduct and bad faith are supported by the evidence presented during the hearings. It's possible that the appellate court could uphold Judge Krause's ruling, overturn it entirely, or modify some aspects of it. Regardless of the outcome of the appeal, the fact that a judge has already found a violation of the Open Records Act carries significant weight. It serves as a public indictment of the district attorney's office's transparency practices. This could have lasting repercussions for public trust in Willis and her office, particularly as they continue to pursue the high-profile election interference case. The ordered release of the specific documents sought by Merchant could also lead to further scrutiny of the district attorney's operations. For instance, the reports from media tracking companies might reveal the extent to which public perception influenced the office's strategies or communications. The non-disclosure agreements could shed light on the internal controls and potential limitations on information sharing within the office. And the list of hired attorneys could provide a clearer picture of the resources and expertise assembled by Willis. It's conceivable that the information contained in these documents, once released, could become the subject of further public discussion, media reporting, or even additional legal challenges. In a case as politically charged as the Georgia election interference investigation, any information related to the conduct and operations of the prosecuting office is likely to be closely examined. The timing of this open records ruling is also noteworthy. It comes at a critical juncture in the broader legal saga. Willis is currently awaiting a decision from the Georgia Supreme Court on her appeal of the disqualification ruling in the election case. This open records violation could further complicate her efforts to regain control of that prosecution, potentially reinforcing concerns about her judgment and conduct. Moreover, the legal costs associated with both the open records lawsuit and the potential appeal will ultimately be borne by Fulton County taxpayers. This raises questions about the financial implications of the district attorney's legal battles and whether her office has been a responsible steward of public funds. In a broader context, this case highlights the importance of open government laws in ensuring accountability and transparency at all levels. The Open Records Act is designed to empower citizens by providing them with access to information about how their government operates. When public officials are perceived to be obstructing this access, it can erode public confidence in the integrity of governmental processes. The legal battle between Ashley Merchant and Fani Willis's office also underscores the adversarial nature of the American legal system, particularly in high-stakes cases. Defense attorneys often play a crucial role in holding prosecutors accountable and ensuring that their actions are within the bounds of the law. Merchant's success in the Open Records lawsuit demonstrates the potential for diligent legal advocacy to uncover information and challenge governmental conduct. Looking beyond this specific case, the broader narrative of legal challenges and controversies surrounding the 2020 election aftermath in Georgia continues to capture national attention. This open records dispute is just one facet of a complex web of legal proceedings, investigations, and political maneuvering. The outcome of the election interference case itself remains uncertain, with significant legal hurdles still to be overcome. The intersection of these various legal battles, the election interference case, the disqualification appeal, and now the open records violation, creates a highly fluid and unpredictable situation in Georgia. The actions and decisions of key figures like Fani Willis will continue to be closely watched by legal experts, political observers, and the American public. Ultimately, the story of this open records violation serves as a reminder that even amidst the intense focus on the larger election interference case, fundamental principles of transparency and accountability remain crucial. The public's right to access information about their government is a cornerstone of democracy, and any perceived attempts to undermine this right can have significant consequences for public trust and the administration of justice. As this legal drama continues to unfold in Georgia, the American public will be keenly interested in seeing how District Attorney Willis responds to this ruling, whether her appeal is successful, and what impact this will have on her ability to pursue the election interference case and maintain public confidence in her office. The story of Fani Willis and the open records violation is a significant chapter in the ongoing narrative of legal and political battles shaping the nation.